Hi friends, thank you. I'm here at Pie and Burger in Pasadena. I'm going to bring me a little closer because it's kind of loud in here. But I'm here at Pie and Burger in Pasadena, which is an interesting place for me to go because when I was a kid, there was a stretch of maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years when a family member of mine owned this place. Like, not an immediate family member, a great aunt's kid. So it's like my grandmother was one of 8 kids. 9, one was stillborn though. Anyway, so most of my extended family was that group of great aunts and uncles and their kids and stuff. So I did have a biological aunt, one, my dad's sister, and her husband, my Uncle Lonnie. But other than that, I had no aunts and uncles. They didn't have any biological kids. They adopted a couple of kids. So I have a couple of cousins, but they're adopted, they're not blood relatives. And regardless, I went to Pine Burger once or twice when they owned it as sort of like, let's go see, I don't even remember who it was, Bob and Susan or whatever, you know. Regardless, I guess this video is about relationship stuff, really, and about what comprises a healthy or good relationship. It's always a question that's often not answered directly. What's answered directly instead is what comprises unhealthy behavior, and what does it look like if you've got somebody who's narcissistic or abusive or whatever. Thank you. I got some strawberry cake. So anyway, what I would say is there are different kinds of bad feelings in a relationship, and they correspond to different expressions of character in a relationship. So loyalty is one value that ought to be upheld. Loyalty can broadly be expressed as preferring. Loyalty would best be expressed as a general bias towards me, such that in certain circumstances you want to not be objective in your comparison of your partner to others, but instead to favor them. Or additionally, in lots of circumstances, you want to be encouraging to your partner, regardless of whether the objective facts suggest that maybe that person is failing more than you thought, or more than the encouragement would seem to, more than would seem to warrant encouragement or something. Like, if you're a good teammate, and loyalty falls under the general category, I guess, of teammate, or teammate falls under the general category of loyalty. Thank you. If you're a teammate on a baseball team, for example, your teammate has struck out the last 4 times at bat. You don't, when he gets up to the plate, you don't go, "Oh, you're going to strike out again. You did it. You always strike out. You can do it. You're going to get a hit for sure this time." And that's called being encouraging. There's nothing deceptive about it. You're not lying when you say, "I know you can do it. You can get a hit this time." You may not actually know he can do it, and you may not actually even believe he can get a hit this time, but you're being a good teammate. It's not subject to the honesty-dishonesty thing because it's predictive. So you can honestly, voice that prediction regardless of whether it's consistent with what you think is most likelihood or something like that. You know, it doesn't really matter. Hot. That's some hot coffee. This is gonna be an expensive piece of pie and 2 drinks. This place is super expensive. Their chili size is $17.50. Their chicken pot pie is $15.50. Cake's good though. So anyway, that general category of loyalty, mostly that teammate stuff. There's another value, which is attachment, affection, or love, or something like that. Under that category goes things like harm prevention. So some of those kind of questions about loyalty versus attachment involve kind of the same test, the test of harm prevention. And the reason, presumably, that you don't tell the guy who's going up to bat, oh, you're going to strike out again, it's not just loyalty, it's harm prevention as well. If you might care about him and you don't want him to feel bad, that's a reason to not say you're going to strike out again, for example. Okay, so that authentic attachment is also going to correlate with a willingness to give your opponent, such a debate coach, to give your significant other, to give them an opportunity to do their thing. Like, I saw an example on another YouTube video that was talking about relationships, and what the guy said was, as an example of this kind of thing, is something really exciting has happened to you today, but your wife comes home and she's had a really terrible day, and instead of telling her about your good day, you sit there and you just sort of put that off till later, and you listen to her terrible day, and you commiserate, and you give her your attention, even if you're not really, you might think it's a little bit banal, the thing that she thinks is so terrible, and you don't exactly care about the thing she's talking about, but you choose to give her your attention anyway because you can see that she feels bad and she needs you to be there for her. So that kind of that's kind of an FI thing too, caring about your partner's needs. Now, one alternative to loyalty and genuine affection or caring is fairness. So regardless of whether, for example, a lot of things aren't very important to me, really, but fairness is. So a given expression of entitlement, for example, might not bother me in its instance, but it might bother me in what it represents. So, if for example, it's tough to come up with a good example. Well, let's say that Kim, I trip over something and look foolish. Kim teases me about it. It might not bother me, the thing exactly that she's teasing me about. I'm not insecure about tripping over things or being clumsy. It's not something that causes me any a lack of self-esteem or something like that. But I don't like the idea of her being a bad teammate. So I'm just going to be opposed to the fact that it's an example of a set, rather than be opposed to it as an example, regardless of the set. I think it's an important distinction to make. And that is, it's a fairness critique. Okay, I want things fair, regardless of if I care about that. It doesn't matter because it's not fair. Another critical value to uphold in relationships is goodwill. So, goodwill means wanting the best for the other person. It's not a foregone conclusion. There's lots of circumstances in a relationship where we're feeling annoyed at our partner and are fighting or something, when the thing that we genuinely and most want in life is for them to lose. If we feel as though we've been treated very unfairly, or treated with a lack of loyalty, or treated with a lack of harm prevention, then that stuff has to be addressed. We either have to be convinced otherwise, or our partner has to make amends in some capacity, or we have to do the work ourselves and let it go and forget. So, the upholding of those values. And there's a fifth value too. So, but the goodwill thing, I want to go back to that. Trust is predicated on goodwill. If in fact I'm going to lead her down a very innocent-looking rhetorical path, only to pounce on her answers, turn them against her, and then go on the attack myself, then I betrayed the trust she's afforded me to having that conversation in the first place. For people with secure attachment styles, that's not a super big deal. But for Kimberly, it's a super big deal. So it's like, we all know when we start a conversation that there's no firm rules about where it's going to go or not go. But oh, I see. Their sandwiches are fairly affordable. Okay, sorry I got distracted. There's also the experiential domain, but I want to go back to goodwill. So, it's, if you're in a relationship with somebody who, for example, resents your success, like let's say you come home and you go, oh, great news, I got promoted at work today. And your wife's like, because she's somehow jealous or competitive against you. That can't be sustained in a relationship over the long haul. You got to think of yourselves as a team. That's the number one rule for any relationship, is team. Which means win-win, lose-lose. It can be frustrating for us, though, when we feel as though we've been treated unfairly, or our significant other is wronging us in some way, and we can't get from them confirmation that that they really care about whether they're wronging, or that they are capable of acknowledging that they've done you wrong, and further demonstrating they care by trying to make rectification somehow. That can be a situation that breeds continuing, like, oppositionalism from both parties. The power struggle. So, the last value dimension is, I guess there are two more value dimensions. The last value dimension is, second to last value dimension is experiential. That I don't care about the sets of which the instances are a part. I care about the instances themselves. And the fact that they make a set occurs because the instances are similar to each other. It's not. It's a different way of looking at things in which the meaning isn't presupposed, but rather deduced from the experience. It doesn't seem to matter to me what a given experience actually is. It matters how everyone's talking about it. And I'm accustomed to being able to shape that pretty effectively. When I can't, as I really have trouble with Kimberly, because SI-DOMs are knowers and experiential knowers. So, they believe things when they see with their own eyes. So, the thing is, people feel, as I indicated earlier, different responses to violations of these domains or values. After experiential, there is one more, which is pragmatic, I guess you call it, or consistency with persistent expectation paradigms or something. Like, Kimberly expects me to have a car and a job, and ideally to make us increase ever more financially secure as time moves forward. So if, it's like you're in a relationship and you lose your job and all of a sudden you're relying on your partner and you're not really looking for a new job, well, then that's an issue of that frame of pragmatics. Pragmatics aren't really an issue for Kimberly and I in general. Although it comes up. People fight about money, they're fighting about pragmatics. One of the problems in relationships is that people conflate things of one value into things of another. And this links back to the different ways that people respond to violations of value. If I might feel gypped, I might feel hurt, I might feel treated unfairly. I might feel beaten up. I guess that goes under hurt. I might feel supervised, scrutinized, walking on eggshells. These things are all going to lead to, eventually, resentment in anybody who's experiencing these feelings on a regular basis, regardless of the legitimacy of them. So, for example, if I start dating somebody and she's 45 years old, and she was super hot when she was 18 or 20 or 25, but she's aged not that well, and she's not nearly as attractive as she used to be, I might feel gypped because, I missed out on her best years or something. In theory, I'm not saying this is applicable to me at all. Just a thought, an example. But it wouldn't be reasonable for me to feel hurt because she didn't do it to me in any sense. It's not about me at all. It's just about the reality of things. I shouldn't feel treated unfairly because, again, she's not doing anything to me. And even if I can find an equivalency, there's nothing. It was a reality that I came into the relationship with. It wasn't something that she's done. And it wouldn't make any sense to... What was the other thing I said you could feel about it? Like, walking on eggshells. Wouldn't feel any need to feel scrutinized about it because that doesn't make any sense because I'm critiquing her or whatever. But the thing is, people don't necessarily put their reaction in the right category for the value. And we'll tend to... People who have... If you have some insecurity about something, then it's going to be interpreted in that way regardless if it's so. So, for example, when I started this relationship, I wasn't really very into kissing. I was just like, I never really kissed Candace when we were married. That wasn't part of our foreplay activities. So, let's say Kimberly was insecure about her yellow teeth or something. She might come to the conclusion that I didn't want to kiss her because of her yellow teeth. I could tell her that's not true and explain that you got me with this thing. I came in like this. Had nothing to do with you at all. And at that point, she shouldn't feel hurt by it. She might feel gypped by it. She shouldn't feel treated unfairly exactly unless I were to say, I came in like this and I'm unwilling to change. I'm not interested in ever kissing you or learning to see if I like it or whatever. Then she could argue that I've been treated unfairly. But the problem with all that stuff is what we really want is not the thing we want. We want to not feel hurt. And we want to not feel gypped. And we want to not feel treated unfairly. So it's like I can't give her that thing without it being perceived now as something it's like a chore for me. And obviously she doesn't want to be kissed as a chore. She wants to be kissed with passion because I want to do it, right? So that would be an example of a situation where once the narrative becomes framed, it gets very tricky. You can't go back and put those genies back in those bottles and say, let me start this over without telling you things that ended up being very ill-advised as I look at them later on down the road. Turned out to be very ill-advised to not just kiss her right from the outset. I don't mind kissing. I just hadn't done it. I just had this narrative that I was going with, not really realizing that some of our narratives that are kind of narratives of convenience that aren't exactly accurate or honest, they might seem innocuous enough, but they can cause massive harm. And ultimately, we're acting out of fear and uncertainty, insecurity. So one thing that's unfortunate is I think Kimberly's begun to feel a bit of walking on eggshells because I'm more consistently policing some of the things she says. She says some awful fucking shit. I gotta tell you, like, I mean, she doesn't think the words' precise meanings matter so much as what they do. So if she's feeling hurt or treated unfairly, maybe or gypped or whatever, she'll tend to lash out and say something hurtful as a means of attaining equilibrium. The thing is, there are legitimate ways to attain equilibrium and illegitimate ways. So the legitimate way to attain it is to talk honestly with your partner about it and hope that they give you an honest, open-minded hearing as well. Remembering the number one rule, which is we need to attain a win-win outcome here. Now, sometimes a win-win outcome is one party taking on responsibility for something, accepting the blame and accepting accountability and making amends. It's win-win because it's what's best for the team, and ultimately what's best for the team is what's best for both individuals. So a given situation might, in that regard, seem like win-lose, but it's always win-win if it's the most just and righteous outcome that is also fully considering the feelings of both parties, which is a tricky thing to do. It's like, you gotta remember that the open system quality to it. It's like, okay, well, let's say you get your partner to go ahead and fully agree that they're responsible for this thing, and they take accountability, and then they show remorse and make amends or whatever. How that's gonna impact them matters. So it's only a good thing when it's safe and beneficial and rewarding for the person to do that. It's like that needs to be rewarded. If somebody does accept, yeah, I'll have a little bit more, thank you. If somebody does agree to sort of shoulder the blame for a larger issue and say, okay, I'm going to take this one, or even just for a specific behavior, I should say, what I should have said instead. Say, that behavior of mine was wrong, and I'm sorry, I feel genuinely bad about it, and resolve to not do it again, to the best of my ability. I'm not perfect, right? Well, to the extent that that's win-win, it's win-win because at that point, the person who's made the effort to shoulder that responsibility, it should evoke in the other party a great deal of graciousness. So if I say, you're right, I was wrong about that, blah, 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 never should my partner say, yeah, you were wrong, and blah, 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 blah. They should always recognize the fact that they are very lucky to be with that person, because that person is prioritizing the team, is a good teammate. And you can be a good teammate back by noting that, pointing it out, and thank you, and indicating to the person that you value them for being such a good teammate, and you recognize they're a good teammate, and you love them, and you're happy. That's why you're so happy to be with them. And a lot of times that'll end an issue entirely if both parties can be genuine about that. But trust is hard to come by for people who've experienced damage, and depending on how old you are, or depending on how much damage you experienced in childhood, and the older you are, the less likely it is you aren't damaged if you're still single and you're trying to figure shit out, or you're just getting into a relationship, something like that, or you've been in a relationship for a long time. Doesn't matter, I guess, but life does tend to damage people, and the goal is to intervene in ways that prevent the pattern of damaging from persisting. You gotta learn to forgive your partner, of course. They're gonna hurt you sometimes. if they keep doing, if you keep hurting you over and over again in similar ways, then there has to be a real conversation about it. It's like, okay, $14. More change. That's all the cash I have. So, not a very good tip. Oh no, it's a good tip. I see. It's $2.15 for $14 bills. The bill is 14, which means it should be $1.40 plus 7.70 is 15%. That would be $2.10. This is exactly a 15% tip. That's fine. It'll do. I would give her another dollar, but I don't have another dollar. I mean, I don't want to use a card. So, that's it for this video. I've killed a fair amount of time here.